So this is a Honda CBF125 2021 model. I bought this bike a few weeks ago from an insurance auction and it's been stolen, recovered. I'll probably put a clip in here, and I've already changed the front wheel and the front forks and the front mudguard because that was a good place to start. But this bike basically needs everything done to it, so I'm going to have to just go around all the way and work my way around the bike. So just to highlight a couple of things: the back tyre is flat, the mudguard, the exhaust is extremely rusty and dented up. So I have a spare one of those that I'll probably change, but in the meantime I might just repaint this one. Rear number plate is missing, indicators are snapped, chain and sprockets are battered, so the front needs redoing. So all the way around I'm just going to do some work on this bike. So yeah, leave it with me and I'll get this bike on the road. So I set to work on the Honda and I decided to just take it easy for the first day. So you can see here that I just put the front forks on, used my 12mm socket as well as a hammer and a few bits and bobs that I had, and I put the front mudguard on and the front wheel on. And while I was there I decided to just to free up the front brake. So I always do that. I just pump the front pistons out and then put some WD-40 into the recess there and just free those up so that the bike will work a little bit more efficiently for the new owner. The first job I'm going to do is to remove this exhaust. Basically, a bike in this condition, you have to get to a good foundation. So you've got to get to a place where everything on it is correct. And I'll point out a few things that are not correct. So this exhaust is all smashed up, so that needs to come off. And I want to repaint it. This bit needs to come off. Just to give you a kind of a clue, this is the clutch cable and it's obviously broken off, and somebody has put on this pin from a 3-pin plug to make it work, so clearly that's not right. So yeah, I'm just going to whip off this exhaust in a minute, and I always kind of want to make it easy on myself, so I've got my WD-40 and I'm just going to give it a nice little spray in there, and that will just help the bolt to come off more easily. Actually it's running out, so I'll do it from this side and I'll just shoot it up in there, and that'll make it easier to pull it off. I've undone the nut here that should hold on this it holds on this bolt, and you can see that this bolt won't come off. And this is just an example of one of the things that you will come across when you're fixing motorbikes. It's not simple, so stuff will be bent and deformed and stuff. So for example here, this bike's had a crash clearly, and this has all been pushed up, so this whole plate here is bent. So to get this nut out, you've got to think about, how do I get around that problem? You could just smash it down with a hammer, but clearly that would be bent, and I think the best way will be just to undo this 8mm nut here. So let's have a go. So if I just undo this, we'll see if we can get it off. These heat shields are actually quite hard to remove because they really do deform and they're always bent, and these are actually quite expensive. The silver part here is about 45 quid and the black part is about, oh, that came off pretty well. This black part here is about 50 quid, so they're not cheap. So I will certainly redo this one at least. It just needs basically to be hammered out, like hammer and dolly sort of thing, then sanded down and then resprayed, and that would look fine. For what this bike will be, that would be totally fine. So now I can pop that bolt out and then the exhaust should just fall off. So yeah, there it is. So the exhaust will just come off, and let's just have a look what we're working with. So if I just throw that down there, you can see it's not too bad actually. An exhaust like this, basically the bikes were made so cheaply that they just weren't painted properly. So I will scuff this whole thing down and I'll probably capture it on camera and I'll just repaint it. And I always do that because it's just a nice easy win, and it helps the person that you're selling the bike to have some confidence that things are what they need to be and that there's some good life left in the motorcycle. So I'll crack on now, and I'm going to start pulling off this side hanger next, I think. So the next job that I need to do is I need to remove this rear wheel. It's got a puncture, the bike's being ridden off road, so I'm not going to mess about with it. I'm just going to change the whole thing, and to do that you need to get the chain off. Hence we just cut the chain away with the angle grinder, so that's now out of the way. the next thing you do is you just undo this rod which goes to the rear brake, so that goes, you know, somewhere safe. And then you have to actually pull the brake to get the rod out, and then it's just a case of getting a little hammer and screwdriver, and you just want to knock this all the way through nice and gently. Keep it up a bit, and then once you're through a bit, you should be able to just pull it out, and then that will just come out when you're done. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to put that wheel to one side, and you can see now I've got some really good access into this area, and I really want to clean this bike all the way through, so that's why I'm removing stuff, so that when I clean it up, I'm going to get everything into a good state, and then I'll start to put stuff back on that's clean and nice and tidy, so that, you know, the bike has got some really good bones to it. So I'm going to crack on with cleaning this bike in a second. So the way I'm going to do this is nice and simple, no rocket science here. I just get my little hose and just basically wash it like you'd wash anything, you know. Just go through with your water, use a ton of water for washing up liquid, and a little sponge. So I just do it nice and simply and just keep rinsing. That's the key. Let the water do the work for you. You don't want to keep scrubbing dirt around, so I'll do a quick little rinse like that, and then give it a little scrub and then a little rinse, and then, as the cliche goes, rinse and repeat. So I'll crack on. I'm going to rinse and repeat till the bike looks a bit shinier, and then we'll see where we are. So this is my old wheel that I've pulled off the bike, and you can see the tyre is flat and battered and no good to anyone. I haven't even tried to pump it up, to be honest. I could have, but no point. It's dirty, it's got oil on it, it's got all sorts of stuff that you don't want, and so that's no good. But what I have got here is I've got a oil that I keep in stock, and what I do, and this is really the core message if you want to fix bikes, is you have to have a stock of parts, and you have to recycle parts, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, and we'll throw that to one side. Done. And I've got this one which I've prepared, and it's in my parts store, it's ready to go. So when I get a bike in, this goes on, and then that is off, right? So now I'm going to put this wheel on, and I'll do that a bit off camera. And then what I'll do is I'll come back to this wheel in my downtime, and I'll just cut this tyre off, I'll clean it up, maybe I'll paint it if I need to, and I'll go and buy a brand new tyre and I'll put it on, and then that is in my parts store. So it's like a swap out, and you get to refurbish the parts that are off the bike in your own time. They're in your parts store, and you can keep switching out. So that's how it goes. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to crack on. I've got all my parts ready, and I'm just going to put this wheel on the bike right now. Okay, so you can see the rear wheel is now on, so that can stay there for a second. What I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to paint this. So this is where the rust has just come through. This bike was crap from new. Now the correct way to do this would be to remove this whole section and to do it properly, but I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of newspaper behind there. I'm going to get my assistant involved in a second, and we'll bend that down, and then I'm just going to spray paint this thing, and I'm not going to worry about it being perfect, so that'll do. So it's time for me to paint this exhaust. It's dried off a bit, but it's about to rain, so I'm going to crack on, and of course I start at the end, do the extremities first, and then I always do the back first, because then I can lay it on its back and do the front, and you'd rather the front look better than the back, right? So yeah, I'm just going to crack on with this, paint it into nice even strokes, and get it done. So the exhaust is done, and my next job is just to throw on a chain. So you can see I've put on a new rear sprocket already, so I'll just have to whip off this cover, and then I will be feeding in this chain. Okay, so the chain is on, and I was not able to capture it on camera because it's you need all your hands, but basically you feed in the chain from the top, and you sort of bring it across and round, and then you come back underneath there, and you want to have a piece of cardboard on the floor. Then once you've lined up, you obviously have to put in this, which is the link. So I won't take it out because it'll all fall on the floor. Push that through, then you get this little piece, which is whatever that's called, put that on there, and then you get this little piece, and that's just the clip that goes on the end. Now, very importantly, for guys doing this at home and following along, you have to put this on this way, right? So this has to be on the way that when the chain is going round, if anything was to catch that, it wouldn't knock it off. If you put it on the other way around, i.e. it could be knocked off if it caught anything, it's an MOT failure, so they'll fail you for that. So don't do that, put it on the right way. So the next thing to tackle is the handlebars. The bars on this bike were battered, and actually the wrong ones as well. So as a temporary measure, I put these bars on, which are completely different. But what I've done is I've bought a set of handlebars here. Now these are for a different bike. They're a generic kind of set of bars with the right rise and the right sort of dimensions. But because they're generic, the holes are in the wrong place. So what I mean by that is on the handlebars, these are the originals. You can see that hole there, and that is to put the switch gear into. So those holes have to be in the right place. So what I do is I get my new set of generic handlebars in the vise like this, and I just place the old one over the top like this, and then you can see here that's where the hole is. And it's important to just line the bars up so that the hole is going directly downwards, and then from there you can just grab your drill, and with everything lined up, obviously I'll do it off camera, you're just going to drill the new hole, and I'll do that now. And there's the hole that I've just drilled, and that will allow the switches to sit on these handlebars. As I said, I'm using a different model handlebar because they're much cheaper, but then you have to modify them to fit this particular bike. Now before I put these handlebars on, I'm going to tackle the Lockset. So you can see I've got the new Lockset here, and I bought this on eBay. You can see the wires are cut, so I'll have to modify the wiring to make that work. But this is going to go on. I've got a couple of these screws. I keep a stock of these. If you actually find out the technical specification of screws like this, you can buy them in bulk, and it's so useful to have a stock of them. So what I need to do is I need to just grab my hammer. It's important to have a hammer with an end that won't damage the bike too much. So I've got one here that's got a wooden end, the copper end. So I'm going to use the wooden end, and I'll just give this a quick tap. I've undone the bolts, and then that will pop off. And then you can see here, if I bring the, this is called a yoke. So if I bring that over here, I'll just take this key out for a second, and then you can see that I can just feed that down in here, and then that will line up like so. And then I will put some screws into those two holes. So that's all I'm going to do, and then I'll replace this back on the bike, and then I'm going to put the handlebars on. So my lock is installed in the top yoke, and so shortly I'll put this on. But before I do, I need to install my battery, because I need to be testing the wiring as I go. There's no point doing it and then finding out that you've done it wrong. So what I'm going to do is just put my battery in, and you can see it just pops in there, and I will connect up these two wires in a second. So one there, and then I need to find the strap that goes from there to there. Once I've done that, I'm going to come to the front here. This is the wiring that goes. These two go to the ignition, but I'm just going to check that that is the case and everything's working and the bike fires on. And then once I've done that, I'm going to modify some wiring to make it happen. And you can see here I've joined up some of the cut wires, and I'm just using this kit here, which is called a bullet connector kit, and you need one if you're fixing motorbikes. They cost £5 on eBay, and they'll allow you to just join wires up like this, and will get you out of a lot of trouble. So the handlebars are now on, and I am just putting the front back together. So let's put this clutch assembly on, so that's there, switches, and then I'll feed these wires through in a minute. And then I'm going to put this throttle assembly together. So I need to feed the cables through the correct way. Now I'm going to replace this, which is a very battered throttle tube, and I've got one here. So little trick here is this actually came off another bike, and what I do is I have different grades of bikes. So if I have a HPI clear, really nice low mileage bike, I will make it really mint condition. So that's what this throttle came off, right? So it's not that damaged, but for a mint condition dealership grade bike, it's too damaged. So I took this off and then I'll reuse it. This bike is a Cat N stolen recovered. It's got a lot of damage around it. So even when it's fixed, it's going to have a lower price point than a mint bike. So bits like this go on a bike of this grade, and then it just helps the business to kind of make sense, because you can't replace every part on every Cat N bike you get because you just spend too much. So I use kind of second grade parts that are still usable on bikes like this. So it's coming together. I've just put a load of stuff on. So this part here is the inner plastic, and a heads up, if you want to repair one of these bikes, that part is £8.50 brand new from Honda. So I think that's a great bargain. So if that's damaged, buy one of those brand new. So we are at the stage where it's just time to test the electrics, and then I can button up this front end. So the bike isn't firing on, and the reason of course is that because this bike was stolen and recovered, the fuses are blown. So I just pulled out, this is the main 20 amp, and you can see, maybe you can't see in there, the wire is blown. So I don't have a spare on me right now, so I'll probably change it properly later. But an old school hack you can do is just get a tiny piece of copper wire like this, and this will be about the same resistance as the original. So then you just wrap it between the two terminals there and then stuff it back in place, and that will work. So you should update it later, but if you don't, probably not a big deal. So I'm going to do that now and crack on. So this front is now assembled. I just need to put on a front brake lever there, and then yeah, it's just a case of popping on this front headlight unit. So I've assembled that, and that will just go straight on the front. So I'll do that now. The rear panel is now on. There it is, very splendid, nice panel. And the next one is this one. So you've got to put these on in the right order. So this one is pretty straightforward. It mostly will just push in if you just line up the right bits. So these lugs will just push in like so, and that's them. And then there's a 6mm bolt that goes in there, which I'll do now. Okay, so that mid panel is now on and looking very splendid. And the last one to put on is this one. So it's just the front right hand side, and that just goes about there. And yeah, it just pushes on. If you do it, you have to sort of push it up and in, then clip in a little tab there, and then there's one bolt. So this comes on and off very easily. This bike is now finished. So it's a 2021 Honda CBF, and it's going to be up for sale very soon. So as you saw in the video, I've been right through the bike, front to back, and the back wheel is now changed. The exhaust has been painted. These panels have been taken off and put back on. The rear light was smashed, so that has been changed. The rear indicators were broken, so they have been fixed. There's a little patch of paint here. I really need to start getting colour matched paint for these bikes, but at the moment I just haven't had time to sort it out. So for right now, that's a colour mismatch. But yeah, it turned out pretty well. If I just turn on the clocks here, you can see this bike has only got 1,800 miles on the clock, so it will sell well. I will probably just sell this one cheap and cheerful. It's a Cat N, it's been stolen, recovered, and it's had a hard life. There's no doubt about it. It's not a mint condition bike, so it will be for sale cheap. If you've enjoyed this video, please stick around and subscribe, and I've got a lot more content coming soon. I've been a little bit busy recently. I do have a day job that takes up most of my time, so I have to fit in repairing these bikes on my weekends and so on, and I've been away, but I've got a lot more stuff coming soon. So stick around. Thank you for being here, and I will see you soon.